Alexi's my friend. I know his character. You can trust him. You can count on him.
Alexi is in this for the right reasons. He will be a phenomenal U.S. Senator.
Two Obamas for the price of one in their first campaign ad together of the election cycle for their home state of Illinois.
Trying to hold on to that seat for the Democrats is, of course, President Obama's former seat. Top Line starts right now.
Hello and welcome to ABC News Top Line. I'm Rick Klein.
I'm Karen Travers.
Every day at noon Eastern, right here bringing you the latest in politics, everything you need to know. Twitter.com/Rick Klein, Twitter.com/Karen Travers. And Karen, a week from today, we'll be talking about election results. How about that?
Do we think they'll all actually be in?
No.
No, of course not. I say Friday.
Okay.
Saturday, maybe.
All right.
Okay.
You're down in the pool.
Before the president leaves for Asia, perhaps.
Kick us off.
Okay.
Tell us what's going on.
Kicking it off with fake news, real stakes. President Obama is heading to The Daily Show today. They're taping in Washington this week. And this is the first time a sitting president has stopped by the late-night comedy show. You've seen President Obama go on Letterman. You've seen him do Leno. They've obviously been trying to get out there in what they call the fragmented media. This is really a last-ditch approach in the final days before the election to really reach out to young voters, do it in a funny setting. But clearly his message is get out and vote. He's trying to rally Democrats.
And you add to that all the radio interviews he's doing with primarily African-American radio hosts and big radio listening audiences, all about the base, firing it up, trying to build a little bit on the enthusiasm of this rally that's going on this weekend. A good thing maybe for liberals to see some gatherings at the National Mall. We'll see how that works out. Next up today, I'm sorry, so sorry. This is the campaign ad from Democrat Earl Pomeroy, who's in a very tough re-election race. Republicans would love to pick this one up. But look at what he is telling voters. Take a look at this ad.
I'd like to introduce myself. I'm not Nancy Pelosi. I'm not Barack Obama. I'm Earl Pomeroy. My opponent says I've gone Washington. I know I've disappointed you with a vote here or there.
I've disappointed you, and I wasn't confused. He didn't look like Pelosi or Obama in that ad.
No, he certainly does not. And this sort of seems like, you know, when you're in trouble as a little kid and you're pushing back with your parents, and then finally your last effort is just like, okay, fine, I'm sorry. Like, this will maybe get me out of trouble, but it's close to the deadline for him to try and get out of this with voters.
That's right.
Oh, that Joe. Vice President Biden is at it again, literally, as he would say. Yesterday in New York, Vice President Biden was at a fundraiser for Kirsten Gillibrand, the senator from New York, and talking about Republicans, Vice President Biden said, quote, literally, they have no vision. This is obviously one of the vice president's favorite phrases, of course. He also told a phone banker at an Organizing for America headquarters in New York, if I had your hair, I would have been president. These things are not on camera. So that is one thing that the White House is probably happy about. Vice President Biden has done over 100 campaign events this election cycle. He has been very aggressive, very active out on the campaign trail, but mostly behind closed doors. We're hearing about these through pool reports, but not seeing it on camera. But Joe Biden just continues to give us more and more material.
He also told us yesterday that this election is literally more important than the one elected him and President Obama 2 years ago. Literally. And finally today, Pence for Prez. Mike Pence, the number 3 Republican in House leadership, is sending word that he is not interested in running for another term as a member of leadership. And this has got a lot of people buzzing. The only reason that you leave leadership, particularly at a time like this, is if you've got other political ambitions. And of course, Mike Pence, widely mentioned as a 2012er, and this is probably smart for him to just get that out in the open and say, look, I am looking forward to doing something else with my time. I don't want anyone questioning split loyalties.
I also think the timing is interesting. You know, today when you hear this, you're like, wow, why is he doing this before the election? But just think, as you said, next Wednesday we're going to be talking about election results. Then we're talking about a lame duck Congress. This is probably a good time when things seem to be in freeze frame on the campaign trail. He's going to get a lot of headlines out of this.
Get that out there. Exactly. We'll begin today's program out in Arizona, where we're joined by Rodney Glassman, who's the Democratic candidate for Senate, taking on Senator John McCain, the longtime Republican. Mr. Glassman, thank you for being here. And I want to ask you, because a lot of folks, including our poll ratings, don't have this right now as a highly competitive race. What is it going to take in these last 6 days for you to turn this around and beat Senator McCain?
This election is all about voter turnout. The only poll that matters is the one on November 2nd, and people continue to visit our website at rodneyglassman.com. All of the polls show that Arizonans are interested in someone other than John McCain. So I just completed a 50-city, 15-county, 30-day tour where we've been traveling the state to let people know that there is a young voice, there is a new voice, there is a candidate actually talking about Arizona jobs and Arizona education, and that's what we're about.
So what will you be doing now for the next 6 days? If you just finished up that tour, is there something in your message that you think can stick with voters over the next 6 days before Election Day?
Well, the two largest population areas in our state, obviously, are Phoenix and Tucson. So we're going to be concentrating on visiting residents there, visiting neighborhoods, presenting to groups, and really getting that energy going. We have a number of communities that have not traditionally gotten out. The Latino community, the women's community is being very aggressively sought after this year. But frankly, it's all of Arizona. I'm the first former elected official in over 20 years to be running for United States Senate against John McCain. I'm the former vice mayor of our second largest city. And so it's just the idea of getting people excited about this race. People are tired of the mudslinging. That's what McCain has become known for. And I continue to talk about jobs and education. And in a state where more than 50% of our homeowners are upside down on their mortgages, and where we have one of the worst classroom teacher-student ratios in the country, people are excited about a positive message this year.
What do you make of Senator McCain? I know you've been pretty critical of him on some of what you've described as flip-flops. At one point, even saying that he's lying to voters about his positions. What do you make of, particularly these last 2 years since the presidential election?
Well, at the end of the day, we have a person who's been in Washington, D.C. now for 3 decades, who has no legislative legacy. Even just a few weeks ago, he voted against the Disclose Act, which would have been all about campaign finance reform. So he's a shell of a former person that was serving our state, but we really don't have anything to show for it. My job is not to talk about him. My job is to let Arizonans know that this time, for the first time in a long time, we have a choice. But we have to remember that a great U.S. Senator from Arizona, someone who's pro-choice instead of anti-choice in the case of rape or incest, someone who cares about public education, someone that actually supports veterans, is going to be a benefit to our entire country. So one of my messages is to continue to get Arizonans to talk to people across the country, to visit our website at rodneyglassman.com and to contribute so we can continue to get our message out.
Mr. Glassman, one of the hot-button issues in your race has been immigration reform, and you have been talking about a pathway to citizenship for illegal immigrants. Why is this an issue that you haven't been able to gain any traction on, perhaps, among voters, especially given McCain's, changing position on this over the last couple years?
Because the fact is that immigration reform is not the #1 or #2 issue for Arizona. Arizonans are hurting for jobs. It's the economy and it's job creation. And #2 is education, making sure that we have a strong education system, a public education system. The Republicans, especially both McCain and Hayworth in their primary, wanted to concentrate on the issue of immigration reform because it's so divisive. It's pretty common sense out here. We've had a guy for 30 years that hasn't been able to accomplish anything in the area. What we need is federal immigration reform. That's why you hear about it in Arizona, but not so much in Texas or California. They've received more resources. They've received more Border Patrol.
But as you know, the state-level immigration law, the new immigration law, Governor Brewer's law, is pretty popular in that state. And some politicians who are opposing it have seen their fortunes suffer. Why do you think that, that Governor Brewer's plan has gotten the support, including Senator McCain's support, like it has?
Well, it's pretty simple. If you ask the state legislature why they wrote the bill, they'll say the federal government has failed us. If you ask the governor why she signed the bill, she'll say the federal government has failed us. You ask McCain, he says the federal government has failed us, but Arizonans know that after 30 years in D.C., he is the federal government. You can repeal SB 1070, you can get rid of all the other issues going on. At the end of the day, we need to retire McCain. We need to have a senator working in D.C. on federal immigration reform because every Arizonan knows that it's the federal government's responsibility to take care of it. It's very simple.
Mr. Glassman, we're almost out of time here, but I want to ask because you have a lovely singing voice, and I'm not just saying that. I really have, because we've listened to it in the YouTube clip and elsewhere. I'm wondering if you'll sing us a couple of bars of "Sweet Home Arizona," or maybe another synopsis of your campaign.
Well, the fact is, I'll sing it, but I want everyone to go to our website, rodneyglassman.com, and learn more about all of our issues. But it's Sweet Home Arizona, where the skies are so blue. Sweet Home Arizona, it's time to retire John McCain. At the end of the day, it's Sweet Home Arizona, where the skies are so blue. Sweet Home Arizona, John, it's time to retire you. But we need everyone's help across the country, so visit our website, make a contribution, and keep us up on the airwaves so that we can retire John McCain and send someone new to Washington, D.C.
All right, Rodney Glassman is rodneyglassman.com. You get an extra shout out for the website because you played with us. We really appreciate it. Rodney Glassman, candidate for U.S. Senate in Arizona. Really appreciate you being with us. Thanks so much.